Hi, and welcome to this live reading from The Widow, a dark romantic fantasy by Naomi Valkyrie and Rebecca E. McEwen, and this is presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Chapter 1. It's the stillness, the silence. After years of conversation, laughter, crying, angry voices, and sounds of passion, it's the silence that makes being alone real. The rain beaded softly on the window as Vashti looked down into the town below her. Although at a distance she could still make out the movements of the citizens of Holcomb. So many people, yet she had no feeling or connection to any of them. Alone. There was a heaviness that blanketed her. Her home, settled up on top of the highest point in the small town, was a beautiful house built in the 1800s. As she gazed out upon the activity of the small town, her mind wandered to long-ago memories. Memories she had filed away as unnecessary. Memories that brought her not only joy, but also pain. So much pain. The sight of the movement below brought her mind to the present moment. When was the last time she'd ventured out of her mansion? She couldn't remember. The glass of the window pane felt warmed against her forehead as she leaned into it. Her eyes quickly focused on the droplets of water, the beautiful prism of light they created in the overcast sunlight. Bringing her finger up to trace the trails that the raindrops left behind before they disappeared, she continued to contemplate so many questions she never thought she would have to face so soon. Each drop was changing as it slid down the glass, always evolving and thus temporary, so fleeting. Just like human life. Just like the raindrops hanging still on the window pane, trying desperately to hold their form. Life changes. So many take the mundaneness of everyday existence for granted, never understanding how literally within a breath it changes. Once there, then gone. One moment a spark, then nothing. The sound of a voice, the scent, the expression of life. Gone in an instant, an existence altered forever. Death and life forever changed, never to be the same again. Ever. She should be used to it by now, but she found herself hard-pressed to embrace it so willingly this time. Losing Anton had been devastating. There are never any words to express the pain. Alone is a good word, but it is still not enough to explain the emptiness. Even after a year of losing him, she couldn't bring herself to socialize. She never was a person to be wrapped up in the whirlwind of social elite. Anton was the extrovert in their relationship. He loved to socialize, meet new people, and he was the one who would take the brunt of the questions, the niceties during their social engagements. He knew most of the town and always made a point to check in on those he felt most in need. The citizens of Holcomb loved him. He was their son, a gentleman, and the kindest of neighbors. Whenever there was a need, he was there to try and meet it. Vashti loved him for his heart and selflessness, a characteristic she struggled so hard to mirror. She never felt judged or shunned by the locals, but she knew she wasn't one of them. That fact and Anton's death had left her with no motivation to deal with people. Still, it wasn't healthy for her to stay a recluse. Solitude is a beautiful thing in moderation. Too much isolation starts to prey on the mind. So many dark places to become lost in, and some of them so dark they would make a priest shiver in fear. The separation and isolation of the mind can lead to areas where there was no possible ways to return. The loss of hope. The snuffing of one's purpose. A dark path where there is no return. Vashti had no interest in losing herself. She was in mourning, not suicidal. There. The internal sarcasm against herself. That mocking derision. She needed the false sense of being superior to everyone and everything around her. She knew suicide was far beneath her, only a consideration for those unfortunate souls who had nothing to live for. Not her. Ever. Yes, she was alone. Yes, she was in pain. Yes, she was unsure. But all of these triggered her sense of survival. She had so much more left to do, so much more to experience in this life. Anton would say, "Well done, my love, well done." She knew within herself there had to be another way. She just had to find and then fight for it. With a heavy sigh, she pushed away from the window and sank into a large black wingback chair. It was settled in front of the window and had become one of her most cherished spots. The chair, so extraordinarily comfortable, gave her a perfect view of the town. Leaning her head into the side of the chair, she gazed into the sky, watching the colors change. Maybe she will go out tomorrow. All of the thinking and processing of the information over the last few minutes made her tired. Just the thought of being amongst people on a large scale took an immediate toll on her energy. It was draining. The day had already passed, so there was no reason she couldn't wait. Just the thought of postponing interaction with other people made her feel better. Yes, tomorrow. There was always tomorrow. As the light faded from the sky and the night took over, she flipped on the small reading lamp on the stand beside her chair. Vashti picked up the latest novel she was reading and opened it. Taking a deep breath as if she had just accomplished a significant feat, with a small internal smile, she sunk deeper into her chair. Until tomorrow, she would lose herself in fantasy, as she always did. Sunday morning dawned, to Vashti standing on her balcony looking out over the small town again. She loved being able to do this every morning, to watch the sky wake up. The sound of birds singing their morning songs and the slow unfolding of beautiful tendrils of light and color bursting across the sky. Because Vashti rarely slept these days, she often had the pleasure of seeing the sky splashed with the pinks, oranges, and reds of the sunrise. Over her life, she had learned to appreciate the beauty in what others took for granted. She knew what the sunrise and sunsets meant. Each one could mean the end or the beginning, however one wished to look at it. She would choose the latter, for now. Breathing in the smells of the morning, she turned from her perch on the balcony and walked back into the bedroom. The French doors of her bedroom flung wide, letting in the fresh breeze. The bedroom she and Anton shared was a large, stately room. Plenty of space to move around without bumping into things. It was one of the facets she loved about the layout of the house itself, how open and full of space it was. Crossing the bedroom to the far side, she opened her closet and began the task of choosing her armor for the day. Today would be taxing on her, but she was determined. As she perused her closet for something to wear into town, her eyes landed on a black dress. Memories. It was the first dress Anton had ever bought her. He had been so proud to be able to buy it for her. She remembered the day like it was yesterday. Their first date had been a Halloween ball, and the dress was her costume. When he had asked her, she immediately said yes, and then realized too late she had absolutely nothing to wear. She had kept her wardrobe minimal on purpose over the years. After revealing her quandary to Anton, he had taken it upon himself to solve that problem. They had an excellent breakfast, then shopped. Then they had lunch and more shopping. When the time came for dinner, she had given up. Only after they left the last restaurant did she happen upon a small vintage store. This dress was the treasure they found. It was so beautiful. Vashti lovingly ran her fingers along the sleeve of the dress. She knew that day she wanted Anton to be hers forever. He had made the entire day with her beautiful. Pressing her face into the dress and closing her eyes, she breathed deep, and she remembered. Even though she would stand out, she decided this dress was the one to help her get through her day today. Taking the dress from its cushioned hanger, she stepped back into the bedroom. Making her way over to stand before the cheval mirror next to her vanity table, she held the dress to her body. The mirror was another of Anton's gifts to her, an anniversary gift to be exact. It was exquisite. The elegant hand-carved mahogany wood curved around the mirror with intricate, elaborate acanthus leaves and scrollwork. The frame and mirror were held on each side by small brass keys which, when unlocked, allowed the mirror to be adjusted. All rested atop a beautifully carved base containing a drawer perfect for her gloves and scarves. It was another breathtaking piece of heirloom furniture in their home, and one she loved using each day. She laid the dress over her vanity chair and gently resting it over the back. All of the furniture in the room was beautiful, dense mahogany wood. Sumptuous curves, scrollwork, and claw feet adorned most of the pieces. Stepping over to the chest of drawers, she chose her lingerie with care. Being comfortable was important, especially when she would be in an uncomfortable situation, the public. Each piece she decided to wear was another layer of the armor. After taking off her robe and nightdress, she threw them on the end of her massive bed. The bra she chose was black lace with a tiny white satin bow setting off her cleavage. She slipped into the matching panties and garter belt, making sure the bow at the back was centered on the curve of her butt. Not that anyone would see, but it made her feel deliciously feminine. On top of the vanity, she always kept a ready pair of tight-fitting gloves for when she needed them. She slipped them onto her hands, making sure there was no dust to transfer to her clothes. The stockings she had chosen were black and sheer. Resting each foot on the cheval base, she smoothed the stockings gently over her thighs, locking each into place with the garter belt around her hips. Straightening, she gazed at her reflection and appreciated what she saw. She turned her torso slightly and ran her hands down her sides and across her hips, enjoying her hourglass figure. Her lips gently curved in the hint of a smile. So many beautiful memories. Seeing the bed reflected in the mirror, she saw Anton atop her, caressing her sides and hip as she had just done. Naked in the morning sunlight, sharing each other, touch for touch. A single tear found its way down her cheek as pain gripped her heart. Memories could be beautiful and yet so very cruel. Dropping her gaze from the mirror and shaking her head, Vashti turned and began putting on the black boots she had bought just for this dress. Any proper lady of the day knew boots before corsets. Hers were Victorian black ankle boots. They were as detailed as her dress and made with the softest leather. Between her lingerie and boots, she felt like a queen. Feeling the boldness rise within her, she turned to put on the next layer of her armor, the dress. She shook it out to fluff the material and even got rid of a little of the closet dust. Then, stepping into the mass of material and pulled it up over her body. The gown was a replica of an 18th century Gothic gown. Exquisite silk elegance wrapped itself around her in this dress. It had a long-sleeved bolero shrug that covered the corseted bodice, and both detailed with silk, gimp, and intricate beadwork. Tying the ends of the laces into place, she fit herself snugly into the corset. One of her many fetishes was corsets, and she had mastered the laces almost to a science. She truly felt a lady could never be a lady without at least one corset in her closet. The scoop neck design showed off her cleavage just enough to make one want to run a finger over the top of her breast, which she did at the thought. Again, memories. The overskirt and underskirt both had a pleated ruffle, and the overskirt having a ruched train cascading into the ruffles. The front over the overskirt had an apron swag. The gown, lined in bridal silk, lightly touched the ground when she moved. Turning to face the mirror again, she studied her reflection. The black material sharpened the contrast of her pale skin. Stepping closer to the mirror, she raised her hands to her face and gently smoothed them across her cheeks and jaw. She was grateful the intense grief hadn't aged her, the face keeping its youthful appearance. The only difference she could detect was the dullness in her eyes. Her eyes that used to shine with laughter and love now seemed lifeless. Wondering if she would ever feel that kind of happiness again, she stared at her reflection for what seemed like an eternity. Memories flooding her mind. So many memories. Is this what her existence had become? An existence of stillness? Silence? An existence to only have life in the memories of what was? Anger slipped through her soul. No. Just no. Taking a deep breath, she shook herself loose from its grip, which tried to suck her back into the darkness, an abyss from which she knew she would never be able to return. She had seen it happen to others, and it was not a place or existence she wanted. Such a place would be for her end only, and that was a long time coming. With one last look at herself, she turned away from the mirror and stepped over to the vanity. Sitting down on the stool, she turned to the beveled mirror and began putting on her makeup. She didn't need much, just a touch of color to her cheeks and lips. She needed something to show life that was still in her veins. So pale. The faint shadows under her eyes were covered with powder, of course. Leaning away from the mirror, she decided the small touches would have to do, pale or not. Putting everything back in its place, she spritzed her favorite perfume on her neck and wrists. Holding the glass atomizer, she realized she was not just dressing to face the day ahead of her. She had dressed as if she would see Anton. Shaking her head clear, this had to stop. How was the pain supposed to ever get better if everything she did made her pause and think of him? Setting the bottle back atop the vanity, she smoothed the skirt of her dress along her thighs and stood. Stepping in front of the mirror once more for that last look, she smoothed her hands down the sides of her tight-fitted corset, her hands resting on her hips as she sashayed side to side. Yes, the perfect armor for the day. A day to face a demon. That demon, she was slowly realizing, was, in fact, herself.